I can now hand over to Dr. Alex Churchill. So Alex is the Deputy Director of the Therapeutics Task Force at the Department of Health and Social Care. Previously, he was the Head of Science and Security at the Government Office for Science, Team Leader for Science Capability in the Government Office for Science, and Deputy Head of Science and Technology Strategy in the Ministry of Defence, with a senior role in policy setting. In his role with the Ministry of Defence, he set strategic direction and assessed value for money for its national and international science and technology programmes. He drafted policy and strategy for the science and technology elements of the Ministry of Defence's overall strategy for defence, the Strategic Defence and Security Review, and recent Green Papers. He also published Ministry of Defence's first innovation strategy. He holds a PhD and first-class honours BSc in physics from Imperial College, and prior to joining the civil service, carried out research at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge. Alongside this, Alex is also on the advisory board for CUSPE. So over to you, Alex, to give us an introduction to science policy.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all coming. It seems a very odd occasion because I've been to a number of these before, and normally it's more convivial where we sort of get together in a room and talk over a glass of wine and network. But unfortunately, strange times, we're now in this situation where we're all cooped up in our own homes and we're talking over Zoom. I have to say I've done quite a lot of Zoom meetings in the past sort of 6 months, I can tell you. So I just wanted to give a brief introduction about why I think science and policy is important. I have to just clarify that I'm not going to talk about policy of, science policy, i.e. how much we spend on science or which bits of science we should be investing in. Government does do that, or principally we let our main funding bodies like UK Research and Innovation do that for us. What I'm going to talk about is just general policy in government and why science and evidence to support that is very important. And this is why I think CUSPE can really make a difference, because you're all scientists and engineers, and this is an opportunity to apply your science and engineering, if you like, to real life problems, and develop policy to sort of essentially solve some of those problems. So policy, who makes policy? You often hear you've got all these civil servants based in Whitehall or elsewhere in the country, and they're all beavering away making policy. Well, actually, they're not. They're beavering away supporting the ministers that make government policy. And I think it's very important to realise that in terms of government policy, it will be the ministers that make that. It's the government itself, which comprises the cabinet and the cabinet ministers. It's not Parliament, it's the cabinet ministers. Parliament is there and scrutinises government on what it's doing on policy, but and there's also influence that kind of local policy. I know that CUSPE on its advisory board has representatives from Cambridge County Council, and indeed there are projects that can actually involve developing policy that affect local things and local issues, which is as important as national issues. So ministers make policy. What makes good policy? Well, policy is always going to be a blend of political issues against particular timings, and hopefully against evidence that supports some of these issues and options that are being developed. But I think we all should always remember that policy and science and evidence to support policy is a really good thing, but ultimately policy is developed and implemented on behalf of ministers. Ministers are politicians, and there's always a political aspect, a sort of more of a sort of people aspect, if you like, behind this. And there will be other drivers that, even if you think the evidence is really strong for a particular option, there'll be political drivers that the ministers will say, well, actually, I would really like to do something different. And that's their right. They are effectively elected by us, the people, to do that, and they're doing that kind of job. So how did I get involved in all this? So I started off as a research scientist, as has been sort of set out in my biography, in Cambridge, and felt that I would like to really get involved in doing something for the government. And I sort of just switched over from doing research at the Cavendish laboratory into doing research in MOD. And from that, I got rather interested in what particular bits of research are done and how it's prioritized and why we do the research, how it actually implements or impacts what government wants. And essentially, I sort of moved into sort of that sort of policy world, making sure that good science was being done, and that science was being applied to the decisions that government were making. Most recently, I've in Government Office of Science, I carried out a review looking at the science and engineering which is carried out in government. So if you look at the science and engineering that's done in government, there's quite a bit. If you look at the expenditure on science in the UK, government expenditure, 2/3 of it is carried out by UKRI, funded through universities, funded into business. But a third of the total expenditure is by departments themselves, spending money either on science and engineering within their departments or contracting that out to universities to do. And why do they do science? Well, because they're trying to identify evidence to support various policies. And just to highlight some examples that I drew out in that review, which is published on the government webpage, gov.uk. If you look at the Home Office, why does the Home Office do science? Well, assessing evidence and carrying out analysis of all aspects of the Home Office's business is pretty important. In particular, if you're trying to make best use of your police forces, it's quite critical to understand if, for example, a crime that's done locally is actually one that's linked to a national crime. And by doing analysis to see how local crimes transfer and relate to national crimes, you can then target your actual interventions and target the way your policing is done. If you go to another department like DEFRA is a pretty science-intense department. A lot of what it does is supported by science. And one example is, we know that, for example, cows are affected by TB, and we have some understanding that TB is transmitted by badgers. So doing that analysis of really understanding how that disease is spread within cattle and really get some hard evidence can really determine what options we need to take, whether we unfortunately decide to cull badgers or whether we decide actually the best approach is to develop a vaccine, and working out effectively what, if you go down those paths, which is going to be the most effective outcome. Another area where science is important, and actually where we found that we were not spending enough on science, is in the Ministry of Housing and Communities and Local Government, MHCLG. And again, this is, we had an awful tragedy in terms of the Grenfell Tower and the fire in the Grenfell Tower. But it then became apparent that the department itself had not spent enough money on science and engineering, so that it didn't really understand some of the options around cladding and safety, building safety, that it was in charge of. So again, it's important to really maintain science and engineering expertise and then understand how that can be drawn into real life issues and real life policies. A couple of other examples that I've been most closely associated with in the last 6 to 12 months is another body that you will have heard of called the Science Advisory Group for Emergencies, SAGE. And I was involved in SAGE for a number of years. And SAGE is an expert committee that would stand up and try and synthesize science and evidence relating to, in most cases, emergency, where we had to discuss policy options, how we might alleviate that emergency. And that ranged from flooding on the Somerset levels, looking at outbreaks of Ebola in Africa and the Democratic Republic of Congo. I was more recently involved in nerve agents poisoning in Salisbury, and there we had to really understand the nature of the chemical agent that we were dealing with, and therefore how we might mitigate and protect the public. What policies did we have to put in place to protect the public? Was that washing of clothes? Was that cordoning off certain areas? How long did this agent last on the ground? How much did we have to cordon off, for example? And then I have to say, for the last 6 months, I've been heavily involved in the COVID crisis and the pandemic. And again, and this will be very much in the press, but the SAGE convened, and there were various aspects of science that SAGE has been looking at. One is the basic epidemiology of the disease. How has it spread? How fast does it spread? And trying to work out where the spread is based on sort of measures like how many people were admitted in hospital, how many people unfortunately have died, and what kind of testing we've got. But also bringing in a blend of social science and behavioural science. So really looking at the full discipline of science and using that behavioural science to understand, if you have this intervention, what will that do and how will people behave, and how will that then affect the social interaction and therefore the spread of disease. And so throughout my career, I've been trying to ensure that science and engineering is applied to real life problems and solve policy problems. And as I've gone on, I've realized actually the more interdisciplinary this is, and the more range, or the greater range of science and engineering that you need to draw on to make sure you solve all the issues and the problems. So that's a sort of brief summary of why I think science and engineering is important. Just one plea for you all to look at. Government has developed a series of what we've called areas of research interest. So if you Google areas of research interest on gov.uk, you'll see there's a web page and it lists every single government department, and each department has put a document of about 3 to 4 pages which sets out what policy questions it has and what research it needs to support that. And the reason for doing that is that we're very keen on creating a dialogue between people that do the science and engineering and have the knowledge, if you like, and the evidence with the policymakers that have the problems, and trying to start that dialogue. So I do urge you to look at that and get inspired by some of the questions and problems that government still has. So anything, I thought that was just hopefully that's been a good introduction to why I think science and engineering is important. I think CUSPE does a really good job at introducing you to some of the policy questions and how your own sort of knowledge of science and engineering can be applied to those policy questions. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was such a great introduction to science policy, and I guess really highlights why we're all interested as well, hopefully, or why people should want to be more engaged. And hopefully that's something that CUSPE will be able to provide for people at the university currently. So I'm going to hand over now to Gabrielle, who is the CUSPE president this year, and she's going to give you all an overview of sort of what CUSPE does and why we're here, basically. So over to you, Gabrielle.
Thanks, Ola. So I'm Gabrielle and I'm the president of CUSPE this year. So CUSPE is a community of early career researchers, students, both undergraduate, postgraduate and postdocs. And we're a community committed to the support of evidence-based policy and evidence-informed policy, using science and science research in order to create better public policy. And we also have an interest in the policy of science research and how that's conducted. We raise awareness of this amongst early career researchers and aim to support early career researchers to influence policy throughout their career, whether that is joining science policy themselves or in the research sphere influencing science policy. We provide those professional development opportunities through workshops and lectures. And we also create links between students and policy makers and policy influencers, such as Dr. Alex Churchill. We have collaborations with various organizations, networking events, and other opportunities to understand those worlds. So the main way you'll probably interact with us is through public lectures, workshops, and our forum. Then we also have the fantastic new Cambridge Journal of Science and Policy, which gives an opportunity for students and postdocs to publish in the area of science policy. We give you the opportunity to understand and develop skills to be more involved with science policy through our workshops and careers events, but also importantly through the Cambridge County Council. We run a series of policy challenges with them every year, and it gives the opportunity for students and early career researchers to conduct research into areas of public policy and make a meaningful impact, which is a really important opportunity for everybody. And we build a network and collaboration through various organizations within the UK and internationally, most notably our parent organization, CSAP, the Centre for Science and Policy, as well as the Cambridge County Council, various government departments, including the Government Office for Science, the Royal Society of Chemistry, think tanks such as RAND, as well as other Cambridge societies. We have an event coming up later this month with the Cambridge Scientific Society. We also work with organizations such as Students for Global Health. So what we aim to do is create a community and network of people who are interested in science policy now and into the future, so that we can champion the use of evidence in public policy and to champion public policy that is informed by evidence into the future. And we're the committee that creates a whole lot of events for you in order to interact with that. And next slide, Orla, please. Thank you. So this is our committee structure. So I'm the president, and these are the amazing, these are the roles of all the amazing people that support the works of CUSPE. We have a lot of the people who are behind the scenes, but also the people who run the events that you'll see, as well as our amazing editorial board behind the journal. And hopefully you'll get to meet some of us today and throughout the events throughout the year. And fingers crossed, we'll get to all meet each other in person soon. You're going to meet the rest of the committee soon, and I'll hand back to Orla for that.
Thanks, Gabrielle. That was a really great introduction to CUSPE and what we do. So yeah, now we can meet the teams. We've had a brief overview there of the team structure, and all the team leads are here to kind of talk through either why they got involved in CUSPE or what their plans are for the year, and what sort of events you can be looking out for, and also potentially how you could get involved. So initially we have our core team. So Gabrielle, would you like to talk through that? Us do that. Did I freeze there? My internet's really bad in my house. Yeah, so here's our core team. Gabrielle, would you like to talk us through our core team quickly?
Yeah, so I'm Gabrielle. I'm from Australia, where I currently still am. It is bizarrely early in the morning for me. I'm doing a PhD in biochemistry, and the rest of my wonderful core team is Katie, our vice president, Ellie, our secretary, Sarah, our wonderful webmaster, and Jerry, our treasurer. So we're kind of involved in a lot of the behind the scenes organization and the general running of CUSPE. And a bunch of amazing people I work with in doing that.
Great, thank you. We also have our finance and fundraising team, who unfortunately can't be with us today. But Gabrielle, do you want to have a brief overview of the role of the finance and fundraising team?
Yeah, so CUSPE.
I'm here, actually.
Oh, you're here.
Oh, you're here. Oh, you're under a different name. Sorry, I didn't see you. Okay,
that's okay.
Grace is here.
I don't think Tara was able to make it, but yeah, I can just give a quick summary of.
Oh yeah, definitely go ahead. Thanks.
What we do. So I'm a second year PhD student in HPS, the History and Philosophy of Science department. and I'm studying philosophy of physics, but really interested in science communication and science policy and how that intersects with issues in HPS as well. So that's why I got involved in CUSPE, and as finance and fundraising lead jointly with Tara, my role is to strengthen our partnerships with sponsors throughout the university and also with industry. So that's one of the things that we're going to be trying to focus on this year, is to develop more partnerships with industry as well as the colleges who've been always really helpful in supporting us financially.
That's great. Thank you so much, Grace. Next, we have our marketing and communications team. So Ernestine, you're our team lead there.
Hi, so I'm Ernestine, and I'm a second-year PhD student in the Department of Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology, and I'm the marketing lead for this year alongside Anna, Kayla, and Ellie. So how I got into CUSPE was because of all the different lectures and the careers panels that they put on last year, which I found extremely useful, as well as the policy challenge, which is really fun. And what we're planning to do with social media marketing this year is that we have our website, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, but we've decided to launch LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube so that we can reach a wider audience. And we also have a bi-monthly newsletter as well, so you can find out lots about us.
Thanks so much. That's our marketing team. Next, we have our Journal of Science and Policy, which was launched this year. It's very exciting for CUSPE. So Emma, I think we're here to talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm Emma. I'm a final year PhD student at Cancer Research UK Cambridge Institute, and I got involved with CUSP last year as an editor to learn more about how evidence is used in policy making and how I as a scientist could influence policy in the future. And I was an editor on the team, and with Michaela, who was last year's chief editor, we launched the first issue of the Cambridge Journal of Science and Policy. And we now have a second issue that will be released in the coming days. And then this year I'm now chief editor, and I'll be in charge of volume 2 of the journal. So we accept publications that are either communications, so these are similar to like policy briefs. We take articles that are more in depth, so reviews, they're a bit longer, and we also publish things like policy debates or interviews with policymakers, etc. We're an open access, triple blind peer reviewed journal. And we really encourage submissions from early career researchers and really work with the author to maximize the potential of their article. So we're currently accepting submissions for volume 2. And the first round of submissions for the first issue will close in January 2021. And we're also looking to recruit some copy editors this year as well to sort of streamline the copy editing process of the journal. So if you're interested, get in touch. And yeah, and also you can peer review for us as well. We're always looking for peer reviewers. So there's lots to get involved with the journal.
Thanks so much, Emma. If you could actually pop the publication's email address into the chat, that'd be really helpful in case anyone wants to get in contact. Okay, our next team are the lectures team. I think we have Argyris.
Hi everyone, I'm Argyris. I'm a postdoc at the Sainsbury Lab. In terms of policy, I'm interested in the institution of society and where they come from and how they transform. So I joined CUSPE last year because I'd been to a few events the previous year, and I know they kind of sparked a lot of thinking for me, and I met a lot of people that were kind of thinking about similar things. And so this year, me and Sarah are the lectures team, and unfortunately it looks like the lectures will be mostly online, but in order to get the same kind of interactive or networking thing, we have specifically allocated some time in the lecture for discussion instead of just the usual questions at the end. And we'll try to have some events also that are specifically less structured and more about networking instead of the formal kind of lecture structure that we had the previous years. So hopefully I'll see some of you in the lectures this year.
Thanks so much. Yeah, the CUSPE lectures are always so interesting. So looking forward to seeing what's coming up soon. But I guess I would say that 'cause I'm a bit biased. Next, we have the workshops team. So Richard.
Hello, everyone. I'm Richard. I'm studying a master's degree in mathematics. I joined CUSPE this year. I've always been interested in sort of reading about science policy and things. I also have an interest in catastrophic risks and existential risks. And especially with this year, I thought I'd take the leap and actually join to try and work out how good academic ideas are turned into real messy government ideas. I'm leading the workshops team supported by Lane and Martin. We have 3 workshops for you this term. The first will be on horizon scanning. So how do you try and work out future trends in lots of different areas across the order of 10, 20 years. Although the workshops this term are interactive, we hoped that we might be able to get some in-person ones. We don't know next term. Nevertheless, we have spent a lot of time making them as interactive as we possibly can. We can release materials beforehand that you can read and distill. We're going to use breakout rooms to try and get discussion going. We've selected speakers who are very interested in hearing what you have to say and contribute, and we really hope that for all 3 workshops, you'll be learning useful things that you can talk about with other people and you can take away and use in your future research or in future careers. The other workshops we'll be doing, we're going to have a careers transition panel. Again, we hope that's open-ended. Ask the questions you want to know and work out how you can, get into science policy. And at the end of the term, we're going to have a very interesting one on how do you actually make scientific advice and evidence unbiased for policy making, which is trickier than it sounds. So it would be great to see lots of you there.
Thanks so much, Richard. Okay, our next team is the forum team. Is Simone?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So hi, I'm Simone. I'm the team lead this year, together with Lisa, who was a team lead last year for Forum, and also Octavia, who's joined us this year. And so the Forum is essentially CUSPE's annual conference. So although I never attended because I only joined last year, and unfortunately this Forum got postponed because of COVID. It was meant to be in April. Obviously that didn't happen. And instead we'll be having it online in November. So it'll occur from the 23rd to the 25th of November. So we've transferred all the work that we put in at the beginning of the year for this new event that will be occurring online. And there'll be more information coming out about that in the upcoming newsletters and so on. So keep your eyes peeled for that. The theme for this year's forum is sustainability and kind of environmental challenges. And so we'll have a series of talks from around 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Across 3 days to be able so that people can attend all the talks. So this is usually a full day conference, but obviously we're not going to do that over Zoom because no one's going to attend for the full day. So we've broken up into little chunks that hopefully you'll all find something interesting there to attend. And yeah, so we're basically organizing that. And what else I need? Oh yeah, so why I got involved with CUSPE, I'm interested in the intersections between science, policy, and kind of how we interact with that as a society. And I'm a first year PhD student in physics. So yeah, keep your eyes out for the forum signups.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simone. Okay, next we have Lisa, who's heading up our Cambridgeshire Policy Challenges this year.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a PhD student in the Chemical Engineering department, and I'm currently doing one of the policy challenges myself. So the last 6 months I've been working with the Cambridgeshire County Council and looked into how they can engage the community better in their climate change agenda. And yeah, we'll be writing a report and presenting that towards beginning of next year. And it was actually a lot of fun and very interesting to work so closely with the council. So I wanted to make sure that program continues because it's really interesting and I learned a lot. So hopefully there will be other interesting challenges next year. Usually the program starts around April, I think.
Okay. We seem to have lost Lisa, but while she's coming back, I actually was the Polish Challenges coordinator last year, so I can briefly talk through it, at least what I know from last year. But yeah, so I think what Lisa was saying is normally the policy challenges run from about sort of end of March through till September, October. But next year, because of the county council elections, they might be pushed back until May. So I think the plan might be either to have slightly shorter challenges or just have them starting later, or maybe having a few smaller ones earlier in the year. So I think they're still working that out. I was hoping Lisa might be able to give us some more info today, but I'm sure if you're interested in getting involved, look out for more information, which will come probably later in the term or early next term, for the launch event for that and these sign-ups. But also, if you did want to get more information, you could also email the president at CUSPE email address, which I'll put in the chat later. And then Gabrielle can direct you towards Lisa or Peace, who are heading up the challenges this year. Okay, so our next team is the events team, which I am part of, but I will hand over to Belle, who's also working on events with me, to introduce our team.
Okay, hi everyone. I am Belle, and I'm a second-year PhD student at the Department of Chemistry, and in collaboration with the Cancer Institute. And alongside with Orla, we're going to be in charge of organizing all the events for this year. So under normal circumstances, we will be organizing formals or in-person events, but we are subject to the different government guidelines, so we don't know what's going to happen this year. However, as Gabrielle was saying at the beginning, CUSPE is one of the largest communities, and everyone is really multicultural with different passions, different ideas, and we're going to ensure that everyone gets together and everyone has the chance to meet not only different speakers and different people amazing that you will meet throughout the year, but also every single person like within the community. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Orla, do you want to add anything about any event that we're going to organize?
I think you covered most things. We haven't got anything planned just yet, as we've been focusing on the launch event, but we will start brainstorming after this event for the first big event. So yeah, look out for that. I'm just going to see. Please drop me a message. Okay, all good. Okay, so if you want to, that's all our teams. I'm sure, as you can tell, there's lots of really interesting things going on. Lots of interesting lectures, workshops, journals, anything you possibly want really related to science policy, we have it. So make sure you sign up to our mailing list, or yeah, so if you want more information, you can visit our CUSPE website, but also you can sign up to our mailing list. So I've got the links here and I'll paste them in the chat a bit later. We also have every type of social media, I think, going, thanks to Ernestine this year, really pushed that. So we have, yeah, some of the sort of links here. But also if you did want to sort of ask a question, if you email the president at CUSPE email address, which is just at the bottom of the screen here, then Gabrielle can hand you over to the relevant member, relevant team member. And I'll make sure all this information is shared in the chat before we all head off. So for our initial upcoming events this term, this is our term card. I'm not sure if it's on the website yet. Ernestine might be able to help. But I definitely think it's been posted on all the social media channels, and also whenever there's an event coming up, it's always in the newsletter and posted on all the different channels. So if you follow all of those, you shouldn't miss any really interesting events. So yeah, I think that's everything for that. So does anyone have any burning questions that they would like to ask the whole group? Either write them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself now and ask away. Otherwise, we'll have some sort of breakout rooms to enable people to chat in smaller groups. there's any burning questions that people want to ask now. I've got a question saying that the horizon scanning workshop is full, but are we recording it?
That's something we would like to do, but we're waiting on the speaker's permission. But be assured that if we can, we will, because we want to. That said, we can't necessarily record things in individual breakout rooms. So at most we would be recording the central discussion. For those who are coming, I'm sorry, it's full. We've had an awful lot of interest. We already have 60 signups. It's going to be, group discussion, breakout into breakout rooms, and discuss individual case studies, depending on your interests that you said, and then come back together for more group central discussion with the speaker. And he's going to basically teach you how to horizon scan yourself.
Can I just add to that? Basically, there's going to be a session during the forum conference in November where some of the students or some of the people that participate in the horizon scanning workshop, if you then decide to submit your horizon scanning product, whatever you've written, to the conference or the science policy journal, which is also an option, then you can present. We might be presenting some flash talks at the conference. So depending on how many interests we have, then everyone that signs up to give a flash talk will get one, or we'll have to select a few. But basically there'll be some flash talks that come out of people going to these workshops and then taking their idea further and developing it. So even if the workshop itself isn't recorded, there'll be a chance to engage with some of the content that is produced as a result of the workshop. And hopefully if it goes well, we can run it, more times, maybe next year as well.
And
can I just add to that the workshop is not a requirement to submit anything for the forum session. So even if you didn't get a spot, you can still submit something for the forum session.
Very good question.
Oh, and I'll add that from the workshop and the forum, horizon scanning written articles that are submitted will be considered for publication in a special issue of the journal, or in addition to an existing issue. We'll put them all together. So there's an opportunity not just to talk at the forum, but also to be published in the journal as well.
And it doesn't have to be both. You can do one and not the other, or yeah.
Thanks so much, everyone. Are there any other questions from anyone? Or any other comments from any of our CUSPE committee members? No? Okay, in which case we can now move on to everyone's favourite part of the event, which is networking, which of course isn't as fun when you're not in person and you don't have loads of bottles of wine. But we'll make do with what we can do at the moment, which is breakout rooms, which I'm sure is everyone's favourite networking activity right now. But of course you don't have to stay for the networking. So of course, if you wanted to head off, I just want to take this opportunity now to say thank you so much for coming. I've just got one question here that's saying, what are you doing that is COVID relevant? Did anyone got any COVID relevant plans?
Thanks for that question. We're currently in the process of organising some COVID events, but they aren't yet ready to release the details of, but they are coming.
Yeah, unfortunately, the most COVID relevant workshop was the one that was going to be joint with the Effective Altruism Cambridge and the Centre for the Study of Existential Risk. You can see why. We've had to delay that to next term. I can mention that because it is on the term card, but unfortunately it will be next term. And as our president indicated, we didn't want to do too much COVID stuff because everyone's doing COVID stuff, but equally the workshop team, especially with our particular interest in catastrophic risk, we are definitely doing COVID relevant events next term, and there will be discussions this term, even if a whole workshop isn't on just about COVID. I think our whole program is about how to respond to these sorts of things. It'll be entirely informed with everyone now is a armchair epidemiologist, and lots of people follow SAGE and can read the SAGE minutes. This will be informing what we do. We are interested to talk about that, but we didn't want to make that our only thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Richard. But thank you for that question. Okay, so as I was saying, if you want to shoot off now, thank you so much for joining us, and we hopefully will see you at some CUSPE events in the future. However, if you are staying, then bear with me for a few minutes while I try to work out how to work breakout rooms, which I haven't done for a few months now. But it should be okay. So I'm just going to send you into breakout rooms of for 5 to 6 people, with a few, for about 5-10 minutes maybe, just to chat to some new people, discuss, why you might be interested in science policy, what you'd hope to gain from being in CUSPE, and just a bit about yourself, really. So yeah.